Hey guys, this is Ryan LeStrange. I'm here with pastor and minister, revivalist Casey Doss, and I'm excited that he's here because we want to talk a little bit about revival. Pastor Casey, you are involved in leading a lot of young people in a very exciting movement that people are familiar with called the Ramp.
Yes, sir.
What is the greatest lesson you've learned about revival?
The greatest lesson I've learned about revival is probably that there are no shortcuts. Revival comes one way only: prayer, consecration, a sold-out life. I was actually just running through Twitter last night and I saw a quote from Lou Engle on revival. He said, "Revival is God's eruption onto a life poured out." And that's the greatest lesson we've learned. A lot of times we have pastors' conference and youth pastors' conferences at the Ramp, and they all ask us, how did you do this? What's the key? What's the secret? Give us the lessons. And literally, the only tip we can give is pray, fast, and seek God and believe God for an outpouring. So that's really our soapbox. There are no shortcuts. There are no easy roads. It's sacrifice, it's consecration, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. So if someone wants to be involved in leading revival in this generation, which a lot of people watching this video, I think that's probably your heart, what advice would you give if they're wanting to get involved with seeing a move of God in their generation?
Yeah, I think the most important things for pastors and leaders to understand as it pertains to revival is, number one, many times it comes through the most unlikely vessels. We have seen God pour out His Spirit on the people that were the outcast, the rejected, the dejected, and it's those kinds of people that you can't give up on. You can't throw in the towel. You have to love, you have to stay faithful, you have to continue to walk with them and believe God to do great works in their lives. So as a leader, as a pastor, prayer, consecration, fasting, and the people that God has sent to you, you don't need anybody else. Those are the people. Those are the keys. Everything you need, God's already put in your house. So look beyond maybe the issues they're dealing with at the time, the struggles at the time, and see that everything you've been asking God for is in them, and it's up to you to find out how to pull it out of them.
Wow, that's powerful. Well, it makes me think of when the Lord met with Moses in Exodus 3, and He asked Moses, "What's in your hand?"
Right, that's right.
And I've often thought about that because if you think about that, really, Moses had this shepherd's rod, which had really nothing to do with what God had called him to do. It actually symbolized his journey away from the call of God. And God wraps Himself around this thing in Moses' hands. So, I think there's probably a lot of people out there that they feel what they're doing is insignificant. They feel maybe the group of people they're leading is insignificant. And if I'm hearing you right, I think you're saying don't despise the day of small beginnings.
That's right, absolutely.
Realize God is up to something. But what do you do when you feel like what you're doing is insignificant? Have you felt that way personally, and what did you do about it?
Right, absolutely. Part of the awesome story of the Ramp is we started out really with 7 young people. 2 of them were Karen's daughters.
Right.
So just 5 kids from a high school locally there. I wasn't even involved at the Ramp at that time. I was doing some other ministry things. And then at the height of where we really thought things were moving and going good and we really had momentum, at our peak we had about 30 young people. And we were so excited to have 30 young people just crying out to God and seeking God. And those 30 young people actually started a 5 a.m. prayer meeting before school every day. And they called it and they would show up. And our goal, our vision was, God, could you, God, give us 100 young people? It's funny now because we live in a town of 6,000 people, and we've had over 300,000 people come to the Ramp through a town of 6,000. And all of that now started with prayers of, oh God, please give us 100 young people. And we would wake up and go to those prayer meetings at 5 a.m. and you'd see young people putting their hands against the windows of our little building there and praying, God, send them from the north, send them from the south. And we were thinking, 20 minutes up the street.
Right.
And God's thinking Canada. Send them from the south. We're thinking 20 minutes down the road, and God's literally sending them from all over the nations of the earth. And so the days of small beginnings, when you look at our ministry now, what God's doing through us now, and I'm sure you feel the same way, you cannot compare somebody else's highlight footage to your behind-the-scenes footage.
Right.
You're seeing the highlights. You're seeing after the hard work has been done. But everybody has those struggles. Everybody fights those days of discouragement. Does this even matter? And if you'll stay faithful, God will answer your prayer.
Maybe a final piece of advice for a young revivalist.
Young revivalist is, number one, don't give up on the church. I know you see the issues. I know you see the struggles. I know it can be discouraging, but that is still Jesus' bride. It is still the hope of the world, and it is your mission to love her and awaken her, not attack her. Jesus loves her, and as a young revivalist, you're called to love her as well.
Very powerful. I think that's such good advice, because so many times we see people feeling called away from the church. So God's really calling people to love and honor the church. And I believe that's a word for you. So listen, be encouraged today. Know that God has something great for you. I'm here with Casey Doss, and we are just praying that God moves in your life in a great way. God bless you.